Admiral Jessica Reynolds stood at the command deck of the EDF Thunder, her weathered fingers tracing the holographic display of Neptune's rings. The massive alien vessels had appeared just moments ago, their emergence sending ripples through spacetime that even civilian sensors could detect. Each Kexthraxian ship dwarfed the largest human vessel, their biomechanical hulls gleaming with an iridescent sheen that reminded her of oil on water. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady despite the weight of humanity's future pressing down on her shoulders. Lieutenant Marcus Young's fingers danced across his console, bringing up detailed scans of the alien fleet. 12 capital ships, Admiral. Energy signatures suggest weapon systems we've never encountered before. Their smallest vessel is roughly the size of Old Manhattan. He paused, swallowing hard. They're positioning themselves in a classic invasion formation. Reynolds allowed herself a small smile. After 30 years in the Earth Defense Force, she knew humanity's greatest advantage wasn't in the size of their ships or the power of their weapons. It was in making enemies underestimate them. "Signal the Europa Defense Network," she ordered. "Tell Commander Paddle to maintain position. Let's see if our guests notice what's hiding under the ice." The alien fleet moved with mathematical precision, their formation so perfect it bordered on artistic. Supreme Commander Vectora of the Kexthraxian Empire stood on his command podium, his 4 arms manipulating the bioneural interface that connected him directly to his flagship. The scans of the human defense fleet amused him. Primitive vessels using reaction drives and kinetic weapons. "Begin the standard greeting protocol," Vectora commanded, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into commands his crew could understand. "Show these primitives the might of the Empire. They will make an adequate protectorate." The Kexthraxian ships powered up their main weapons, creating a light show visible from Mars. Energy coursed through their crystalline weapon arrays, designed to overwhelm any known defense system with raw power. It was a display that had brought hundreds of species to their knees without firing a shot. Back on the Thunder, Reynolds watched the alien weapon display with practiced calm. "They're certainly theatrical," she mused. "Lieutenant Zhang, are they scanning the Lagrange points?" "Negative, Admiral. Their sensor suites are focused on our visible fleet and planetary bodies." Reynolds nodded, remembering an ancient human saying about pride coming before a fall. "Send the coded burst to Captain Rodriguez. Let's show our friends why humans never put all their eggs in one basket." Deep within Europa's icy oceans, humanity's true first line of defense waited. The submarine carriers, developed in absolute secrecy, had trained for this moment for decades. Commander Patel's voice crackled through the quantum-encrypted comms. "Strike packages armed and ready, Admiral. They won't see us coming until it's too late." Vectora was preparing to deliver his speech, the same one that had begun the subjugation of countless civilizations, when his sensor officer interrupted with increasing alarm in their harmonics. "Supreme Commander, we're detecting anomalous energy signatures. They're impossible. The humans are launching vessels from within their ice moon." Before Vectora could process this information, the first wave of human stealth fighters erupted from Europa's surface, their phantom drives leaving no exhaust trail as they accelerated to attack velocity. The Kexthraxian Empire was about to learn why humanity had spent centuries preparing for this exact moment. Reynolds watched as her carefully orchestrated plan unfolded. The aliens had fallen for humanity's oldest trick, appearing weak when they were strong. As the stealth fighters closed in on their targets, she opened a channel to all Earth forces. "All ships, execute Operation Thunderbolt. Let's show these visitors why you never judge a species by the size of their ships." The battle for humanity's independence was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Kexthraxian command deck erupted in chaos as the first wave of human stealth fighters emerged from their hiding spots beneath Europa's ice. Vectora's secondary hearts pounded as his tactical display lit up with hundreds of small, agile craft that seemed to appear from nowhere. "Impossible," his weapons officer chittered, mandibles clicking in agitation. Their drive signatures don't match any known propulsion system. They're moving through spaces that should be mathematically impossible. Admiral Reynolds' voice cut through the quantum-encrypted channels, clear and commanding. Execute the slingshot protocol. Show them why we studied orbital mechanics for the last 3 centuries. The EDF Thunder led the charge, its massive frame accelerating in ways that defy the aliens' understanding of physics. Behind it, the rest of the human fleet began an intricate dance that had been practiced thousands of times in secret. Each ship's gravitational wake created a corridor for the smaller vessels behind it, building a cascade of acceleration that the Kextraxians' targeting computers couldn't track. Multiple human vessels approaching it. This can't be right, Vectora's senior analyst reported, their bioluminescent patches flashing with distress. They're using their own ship's mass to create gravitational corridors. The smaller ships are reaching speeds our weapons can't track. Lieutenant Zheng's voice was steady as he reported from the Thunder's tactical station. First wave of stealth fighters engaging, Admiral. The Europa squadrons are executing the Mobius formation. Reynolds watched as humanity's years of preparation paid off. The stealth fighters moved in patterns that looked chaotic to the untrained eye, but were actually precisely calculated to exploit weaknesses in alien sensor systems. Each squad of fighters followed paths that created interference patterns in the Kextraxians' targeting arrays. Launch the Phantom drones, Reynolds commanded. Let's see how they handle fighting shadows. The battle space bloomed with holographic duplicates of human ships, each one broadcasting false sensor signatures that the aliens' computers registered as real. The Kextraxian fleet, faced with targets their logic couldn't process, began firing wildly at ghost ships that disappeared and reappeared at will. Vectora watched in horror as 3 of his escort ships' weapons overloaded, their crystalline arrays shattering as they tried to track targets that shouldn't exist. How are they doing this? Their technology is primitive. They shouldn't be able to. His words were cut off as the first real strike hit home. A squadron of human fighters, hidden among the Phantom signals, emerged from their sensor-blind approach and launched their payloads. The warheads weren't the crude nuclear devices the Kextraxians had expected. Instead, they were something far worse. Quantum disruption bombs that phased through the aliens' energy shields as if they weren't there. All ships, execute attack pattern Delta, Reynolds broadcasted. Remember your training. Fight like your ancestors, unpredictable, adaptable, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. The human fleet split into smaller battle groups, each one operating independently yet part of a greater whole. The Kextraxians' rigid command structure began to crack as they faced an enemy that refused to follow any known tactical doctrine. Supreme Commander, Vectora's second-in-command reported, the humans, they're not just fighting us. They're learning from every exchange. Their combat algorithms are evolving faster than our battle computers can adapt. Reynolds allowed herself a grim smile as she watched the alien fleet's formation begin to break. They had expected to find a primitive species, easy prey for their superior technology. Instead, they found humanity. A species that had spent its entire history preparing for this moment, turning its paranoia into preparation and its fears into weapons. Signal the IO defense platform, she ordered. Tell them to prepare the gravity lance. Let's show our visitors why humans never stopped improving our weapons, even during peacetime. The battle was far from over, but the galaxy was about to learn an important lesson. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their ships. It was their ability to turn any disadvantage into a devastating surprise. The quantum disruption bombs tore through the first Kextraxian vessel like tissue paper, its crystalline superstructure shattering in a display that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so deadly. Admiral Reynolds watched as her fleet executed maneuvers that would have been impossible just a decade ago, before humanity had cracked the code of gravitational manipulation. Execute Protocol Banshee, she ordered, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of human warfare. Let them hear the songs of their dying. Lieutenant Zheng's fingers danced across his console. activating psychological warfare subroutines. Admiral, the quantum resonance chambers are charged and ready. The dying screams of the first Kex-Thraxian ship had been carefully recorded, analyzed, and weaponized by human scientists who had spent years studying alien psychology. Now that death cry was being broadcast across all frequencies, modulated to match the exact harmonic frequencies that triggered fear responses in Kex-Thraxian neural patterns. Vectora clutched his command podium as the sound hit his ship. It wasn't just noise, it was primal terror given form, amplified by the knowledge that it came from his own kind. "Shut it out," he screamed, but the humans had done their homework too well. The frequencies bypassed the ship's communication filters, designed to block traditional electronic warfare. "Supreme Commander," his communication officer chittered, panic evident in their bioluminescent patches. "The humans, they're not just killing our ships. They're turning their deaths into weapons." Reynolds watched as the psychological attack took hold. The Kex-Thraxian fleet's perfect formation began to waver, their ships' movements becoming erratic as their crews fought against their own instincts. "Launch the mirror drones," she commanded. "Show them what their fear looks like." Thousands of small reflective spheres deployed from the human ships, each one designed to catch and amplify the light from the burning Kex-Thraxian vessels. The space around the battle became a hall of mirrors, forcing the aliens to watch their own destruction from countless angles. "Admiral," John reported, "the EDF Thunder shields are at 60%. The enemy's plasma lances are still dangerous, even if they can't target us effectively." Reynolds nodded. "Time to show them why humans never relied on shields alone. Execute the Chimera protocols." The human fleet's response was something the Kex-Thraxians had never seen in their 50,000 years of space warfare. The ships began intentionally grazing their own shield perimeters against each other, creating cascading energy feedback loops that transformed their defensive systems into offensive weapons. "Impossible," Vectora's science officer exclaimed. "They're using their shield failures as directed energy weapons. The feedback discharge, it's more powerful than our main guns." The space between the fleets became a deadly light show as human ships performed what looked like a synchronized dance, their shield interactions creating deadly energy pulses that bypassed the aliens' defenses completely. Each blast carried with it the amplified death screams of fallen Kex-Thraxian ships, turning the very vacuum of space into a psychological weapon. The humans, Vectora's tactical officer reported, their voice trembling. "They're not fighting like any species we've encountered. Each ship moves independently, but they're all part of some greater pattern we can't decode. Our battle computers are detecting fractal attack formations that shouldn't be possible in three-dimensional space." Reynolds allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "Begin Phase 3 of the Valkyrie Protocol. Let's show them why Earth's greatest warriors were often its musicians." The human fleet's electronic warfare suites began broadcasting on new frequencies, turning the harmonics of battle into a symphony of destruction. Each explosion, each shield collapse, each dying scream became part of a carefully orchestrated performance designed to break not just the enemy's ships, but their will to fight. The dance of death continued, and the galaxy would soon learn that humans hadn't just mastered the art of war, they had turned it into a performance that would haunt their enemies' nightmares for generations to come. Vectora's flagship shuddered as another human attack penetrated their supposedly impenetrable defenses. His strategic options were running out, and for the first time in his 300-year military career, he felt genuine fear. "Deploy the planet killers," he ordered, his voice carrying the weight of desperation. "Target their homeworld. Let's see how brave these humans are when their cradle burns." The massive weapon arrays on the Kex-Thraxian capital ships began to power up, their crystalline structures glowing with enough energy to crack a planet's crust. But Admiral Reynolds had been waiting for this moment. "They took the bait," she said, her lips curving into a predatory smile. "Signal the Cirrus fleet. It's time to show them why humans never keep all their children in one nest." Vectora's moment of triumph turned to ash in his mouth as his sensor officers screamed in panic. Throughout the asteroid belt, what had appeared to be ordinary mining facilities and cargo haulers suddenly shed their civilian disguises. Hundreds of warships, hidden in plain sight for decades, powered up their systems in perfect synchronization. Impossible. Vectora's second-in-command chittered. Our scans showed those were primitive mining vessels. Lieutenant Zheng's voice carried a note of pride as he reported, Sarah's fleet reporting ready, Admiral. All camouflage systems disengage. The sleeper fleet is awakening. Reynolds opened a channel to all human forces. Remember your training, people. Operation Exodus begins now. Show them why humanity never believed we were alone in the universe. The mining ships revealed their true nature. What the Kexthraxians had dismissed as clumsy excavation equipment transformed into state-of-the-art weapon systems. Cargo holds split open to reveal missile batteries, and sensor dishes reconfigured into targeting arrays. The humans, Vectora's tactical officer reported, their bioluminescence pulsing with fear. They'd been preparing for this for centuries. Those aren't just converted civilian ships. They're purpose-built warships designed to look primitive. Reynolds watched as the trap closed. The Cirrus fleet moved with practiced precision, their formation creating a three-dimensional cage around the Kexthraxian forces. What appeared to be random asteroid debris began moving with purpose, revealing itself as a vast network of automated defense platforms. Analysis of their planet-killer weapons is complete, Zheng reported. They're exactly what we expected. Crystalline focus arrays using quantum cascades. Exactly like the simulations we've been running for the past 50 years. Perfect, Reynolds replied. Deploy the resonance disruptors. Let's show them why humans always plan for the worst. The Kexthraxian planet killer arrays powered up, ready to deliver their devastating payload. But as they reached critical charge, hundreds of small, seemingly insignificant devices attached to nearby asteroids activated. The space around the alien fleet filled with a precise frequency that caused their crystalline weapons to vibrate in sympathy. No, Vectora screamed as his mighty weapons began to shake themselves apart. How could they know? How could they have prepared for weapons they'd never seen? Reynolds' voice cut through all frequencies, addressing the alien fleet directly. We've been watching the stars for centuries, Supreme Commander. Did you think we wouldn't notice the radiation signatures from your previous conquests? Did you think we wouldn't analyze the debris fields you left behind and learn how your weapons worked? The Cirrus fleet closed in, their weapons already tracking the weakened alien vessels. What looked like simple mining lasers revealed themselves to be focused plasma cutters capable of slicing through capital ship armor. Cargo tractors projected gravitational fields strong enough to tear ships apart. You see, Commander, Reynolds continued, humans have always known we weren't alone. And we've spent every moment since preparing for this day. Every mining operation was a weapons test. Every space station was a fortress. Every civilian ship was built to become something far more dangerous. The galaxy was about to learn another lesson about humanity. They didn't just prepare for the future. They actively shaped it, turning their paranoia into the ultimate defense strategy. Admiral Reynolds watched as the carefully orchestrated trap decades in the making finally closed around the Kexthraxian fleet. The mighty alien armada found itself caught between Jupiter's massive gravitational well and something they'd never encountered before, weaponized space-time itself. Status of the gravity web, she asked, her eyes fixed on the tactical display where red dots representing alien ships clustered together like wounded prey. Lieutenant Zheng's fingers danced across his console. All gravitational mines are powered and synchronized, Admiral. The Lagrange Defense Network reports ready for full activation. We have them exactly where we want them. Vectora's command ship shuddered as another volley of human attacks struck home. His tactical display was a nightmare of conflicting sensor readings as space itself seemed to twist around his fleet. What sorcery is this? He demanded, all four arms gesturing wildly at the impossible readings. Space doesn't bend this way. "Initiate Operation Newton's Revenge," Reynolds commanded, her voice carrying the weight of scientific progress turned to martial purpose. "Show them why humans never stopped studying gravity." The trap revealed itself in its full, terrible glory. What the aliens had dismissed as random debris and asteroidal fragments suddenly activated, forming a complex network of gravitational distortion devices. Each one had been precisely positioned over years of careful planning, disguised as simple navigation beacons or research equipment. "Supreme Commander," Vectora's science officers screamed, their bioluminescent patches flashing in panic. "The humans, they've created artificial gravity wells. They're manipulating space-time on a quantum level." The human fleet began their final movement in this deadly dance. Each ship activated specialized equipment that had been hidden beneath layers of seemingly primitive technology. The space around the alien fleet became a maze of intersecting gravitational fields, each one carefully calculated to reinforce the others. "You see," Reynolds broadcast on all frequencies, "we learned something important from studying Earth's oceans. Sometimes the most effective trap isn't a wall or a weapon. It's the current itself." The Kexthraxian ships found themselves caught in what human scientists had dubbed gravity streams, artificial currents in space-time that pulled their vessels inexorably toward carefully prepared killing zones. Their mighty engines, capable of crossing interstellar distances, struggled against forces that seemed to violate the laws of physics themselves. "Deploy the singularity anchors," Reynolds ordered. "Let's show them why humans spent so much time studying black holes." From the Jupiter defense platforms, massive devices that had been disguised as atmospheric research stations powered up. They didn't create black holes. Humanity hadn't quite mastered that technology yet, but they could create localized points of extreme gravitational distortion that served almost the same purpose. Vectora watched in horror as his ship's energy shields, designed to deflect any known weapon, proved useless against the fundamental force of gravity itself. "Impossible," he raged. "Their technology was supposed to be primitive. They shouldn't be capable of this level of gravitational manipulation." Zhang allowed himself a small smile as he reported, "Gravity web at full power, Admiral. The enemy fleet is completely contained. Their shields are failing under the gravitational stress." Reynolds nodded, her expression grim but satisfied. Humanity learned long ago that the most dangerous predator isn't always the one with the biggest teeth or the strongest armor. Sometimes it's the one that turns the environment itself into a weapon. The Kexthraxian ships began to break apart under the immense gravitational forces. Their mighty hulls, capable of withstanding direct hits from plasma weapons, crumpled like paper dolls as space itself seemed to fold around them. "A final message for you, Supreme Commander," Reynolds broadcast. "Humanity doesn't just adapt to the universe. We learned how to make the universe itself adapt to us. Remember that if you survive to report back to your empire." The galaxy was about to learn why studying human science was just as important as studying human warfare, because in humanity's hands, they were often the same thing. "Admiral," Lieutenant Zhang's voice cut through the controlled chaos of the bridge. "The Kexthraxians are attempting to adapt their shields to the gravitational distortions. Their quantum computers are processing new configurations." Admiral Reynolds smiled grimly. They'd predicted this. The aliens wouldn't go down without showing all their cards. "Perfect. Initiate Operation Hydra. Let's show them why humans never put all their eggs in one tactical basket." Throughout the human fleet, dormant systems awakened. Each ship's tactical AI, carefully constructed to mimic the unpredictable nature of human thinking, began operating independently. What had appeared to be a coordinated fleet action suddenly transformed into hundreds of individual battles, each human vessel becoming its own autonomous combat unit. Vectora watched in mounting horror as his neat tactical display dissolved into chaos, where before he could predict human fleet movements through their command structure. Now each human ship moved with its own purpose, its own strategy, its own mission. "How are they coordinating?" he demanded, all four arms manipulating his control interfaces frantically. There's no central command pattern, no unified strategy. His tactical officer's bioluminescence flickered in distress. Supreme Commander, we're detecting artificial intelligence signatures from each human vessel, but they're not networked. They're all different, all evolving independently. Our battle computers can't predict their actions. Reynolds opened a channel to all human ships. Remember your training, people. Your eyes have studied every battle in human history, from ancient naval engagements to modern space combat. Trust them like you'd trust your own instincts. The EDF Thunder's AI, designation Prometheus, adapted its combat patterns in real time, learning from each exchange with the enemy. Around it, other human ships did the same, each AI drawing from different military traditions and tactical doctrines. The humans, Vectora's science officer reported, mandibles clicking in agitation. Their ships are fighting like they're ancient warriors. That vessel moves like a Roman legion. That one employs Mongol horse archer tactics. Another uses modern guerrilla warfare patterns. Zhang monitored the tactical feeds as human ships demonstrated combat doctrines from across Earth's violent history. AI adaptation rates at optimal levels. Admiral. The Kexthraxians can't predict what they can't understand. Reynolds nodded, watching as her fleet transformed into a swarm of independent hunters. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our numbers. It's our ability to learn from every battle, every war, every conflict in our history. A Kexthraxian cruiser shattered under the combined assault of 3 human vessels, each attacking from a different vector using completely different tactical approaches. Its destruction triggered another wave of psychological warfare broadcasts. The ship's death screams carefully modulated to maximize their impact on alien morale. Supreme Commander, Vectora's second-in-command reported, their voice trembling. Our fleet coordination is breaking down. Each human ship requires a different defense strategy. We can't adapt fast enough. Reynolds watched as the aliens' rigid command structure began to crumble in the face of humanity's controlled chaos. You see, Supreme Commander, she broadcast, humans learned long ago that the most effective military force isn't the one with the strictest discipline or the most powerful weapons. It's the one that can adapt fastest, think independently, and turn chaos itself into an advantage. The human AIs continued to evolve their tactics, each one learning from every exchange, every hit, every miss. What had started as historical combat doctrines morphed into entirely new forms of space warfare, developed in real time by artificial intelligences that thought as unpredictably as their human creators. Let the galaxy remember this, Reynolds declared to her fleet. Humanity doesn't just fight wars, we revolutionize warfare itself. Every battle is a lesson. Every engagement, a chance to evolve. Show them why Earth's greatest warriors were always the ones who could think for themselves. The stars themselves seemed to bear witness as humanity's greatest military innovation. The ability to turn independent thought into a weapon changed the face of galactic warfare forever. Supreme Commander Vectora made his final desperate gambit. With his fleet in shambles and his tactical advantages evaporated, he gave the order that no Kexthraxian commander had been forced to give in 10,000 years of warfare. All ships converge on their homeworld. If we're to fall, we'll take their cradle of civilization with us. The remaining alien vessels, still numbering in the dozens, began a suicidal charge toward Earth. Their massive engines burned with desperate fury, pushing their surviving ships to their structural limits. Admiral Reynolds watched the maneuver with cold calculation. And so they fall for the oldest trap of all, she said quietly. Lieutenant Zhang, signal all solar defense grid nodes. Activation code, Thermopylae. Vectora felt a surge of hope as his fleet approached the seemingly defenseless blue world. The humans had committed their forces to the outer system battle. Surely they couldn't have more surprises left. The first sign that something was wrong came from his sensor officer. Supreme Commander, we're detecting massive energy signatures, from their planet's dormant volcanoes. Across Mars, what appeared to be extinct volcanic calderas suddenly burst into life. But instead of magma, they erupted with something far more deadly, quantum-entangled plasma streams that could ignore the normal rules of physics. The carefully hidden weapon systems, disguised as natural formations, created a lethal web of energy that no shield could block. "You didn't think we'd leave our homeworld unprotected, did you?" Reynolds' voice carried across all frequencies. "Humanity learned long ago to turn our planets themselves into fortresses." Zhang's fingers flew across his console. "Mars Defense Grid online, Admiral. Mercury Base reports their antimatter catalysts are primed and ready." Deep within Mercury's core, machinery that had been running hot for decades spooled up to full power. The smallest planet in the solar system had been transformed into humanity's ultimate weapon platform, using its proximity to the sun to mask its true purpose. The humans, Vectora's science officer reported in horror, they've built weapons inside their planets. They've turned their entire solar system into a death trap. Reynolds opened a channel to all Earth forces. "Activate the orbital defense swarm. Show them why humans never throw anything away. Even our space junk has a purpose." What appeared to be ordinary space debris, the accumulated remnants of centuries of space exploration, suddenly came alive. Thousands of dormant microsatellites, disguised as harmless trash, powered up their weapon systems. The Kex-Thraxian fleet found itself surrounded by a cloud of tiny but deadly opponents. Impossible. Vectora raged as his ships began falling to weapons fired from what his sensors had dismissed as garbage. They turned their orbital refuse into weapons. "You see," Reynolds broadcast, "humanity learned early in our space age that anything in orbit could be a weapon. So we made sure everything was." The space around Earth transformed into a killing field. Automated defense platforms, hidden beneath the lunar surface, emerged from their decades-long slumber. The seemingly peaceful solar research stations in Earth orbit revealed their true nature as energy weapon platforms. Zhang monitored the tactical displays as the trap closed. "All defensive systems operating at full capacity, Admiral. The enemy fleet is contained. Launch the final phase," Reynolds commanded. "Let's show them why humans believe the best defense is a good offense." From hidden silos across Earth's surface, a new wave of ships launched. Not the massive capital ships the aliens expected, but swarms of smaller, more agile vessels. Each one carried a piece of humanity's martial heritage, from hypersonic kinetic weapons to experimental phase cannons. "A final lesson for you, Supreme Commander," Reynolds broadcast as her forces closed in for the kill. "Never assume a species' homeworld is its weakness. Sometimes it's the most dangerous place in their territory." The stars watched silently as humanity demonstrated why they had spent centuries turning their entire solar system into an interlocking defense grid, ready to spring its trap on any who dared threaten Earth. The Galactic Council chamber fell into absolute silence as Admiral Jessica Reynolds stood before them, her Earth Defense Force uniform pristine, her bearing unwavering. Behind her, holographic displays showed the aftermath of the battle that had changed galactic warfare forever. "Distinguished representatives of the galaxy," she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber, "I stand before you not just as a military commander, but as a messenger. Humanity comes with a warning and an offer." The counselors, representing over 300 spacefaring civilizations, watched as the tactical recordings played out. The once mighty Kex-Thraxian fleet, reduced to scattered debris across the Sol system, served as a stark reminder of humanity's capabilities. Supreme Commander Vectora, one of the few survivors of the battle, stood to address the council. His once pristine ceremonial armor now bore the scars of combat, and his forearms trembled slightly as he spoke. "The humans," he said, his translator struggling to convey the mix of fear and respect in his voice, "they are not what they appear to be. Their ships are not just vessels. They are expressions of their entire violent history. Each one carries not just weapons, but ideas that make them more dangerous than any technology. Reynolds nodded. For centuries, humanity prepared for this moment. Not because we wanted war, but because we understood a fundamental truth that the galaxy had forgotten. True strength lies not in the size of your ships or the power of your weapons, but in the ability to adapt, to think, to turn any situation to your advantage. Lieutenant Zhang, standing at her side, activated the next set of holographic displays. They showed the human fleet's distributed combat doctrine, the independent AI tactical systems, the gravitational warfare that had rewritten the rules of space combat. The Kexthraxian Empire, Reynolds continued, made the same mistake that countless human armies have made throughout our history. They assumed that technological superiority guaranteed victory. They forgot that warfare isn't just about weapons. It's about will, innovation, and the ability to turn your enemy's strength against them. The Council's chief administrator, a being of pure energy, pulsed with concern. You speak of revolution in warfare, Admiral Reynolds. The galaxy has known peace for millennia through the balance of power. What you propose could shatter that peace. Reynolds smiled, but there was steel in her expression. With respect, Administrator, false peace built on the threat of overwhelming force isn't peace at all. It's just delayed conflict. Humanity offers something different. True deterrence through mutual understanding. She gestured to the tactical displays. Every innovation you see here, every strategy we employed, came from our history of conflict. But more importantly, it came from our history of resolution, of finding ways to turn enemies into allies. The Kexthraxian Empire thought they were coming to subjugate a primitive species. Instead, they found equals. Vectora stepped forward. The Empire. He hesitated, then straightened. The Empire requests a formal alliance with Earth, not as protectors, but as equals. We have learned that any species capable of turning their entire solar system into a defense grid while making it appear defenseless is not to be underestimated. A council chamber erupted in murmurs as Reynolds extended her hand to Vectora in the human gesture of peace. The four-armed alien carefully clasped it with his upper right hand, recreating the gesture that would soon become famous across the galaxy. Remember this day, Reynolds addressed the council, not as the day humanity proved its military might, but as the day the galaxy learned that true strength comes in many forms. We don't seek to dominate, but we will never submit. We don't seek war, but we will never back down from defending what's ours. The Council's records would mark this as the moment when galactic civilization truly began to change. Humanity's entry into the wider universe didn't just revolutionize warfare. It revolutionized how species viewed strength itself. As Reynolds concluded her address, she left the galaxy with one final thought. The stars belong to all of us, and humanity will fight to keep them free, not just for ourselves, but for every species that dreams of reaching them. The age of assumed superiority was over. The age of human innovation had begun.